This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Here are a couple of potential significant developments on the tariff front. While most automakers and analysts are cutting their U.S. sales forecast for the year because of the tariffs, BMW is not one of them. It's sticking to its original forecast because it expects U.S. car tariffs will decline in July based on talks that it's holding with the Trump administration. BMW's plant in South Carolina is the largest one it has in the world, and it is the top exporter by dollar value compared to any other assembly plant in the U.S. BMW's CEO, Oliver Zipse, told analysts in its first quarter earnings call that being the largest exporter will play a role in negotiations and that its large footprint will not be ignored. Here's our Autoline insight. We think that when all the dust settles, the Trump administration will end up with a 10% tariff on European car imports because that's what the EU charges on U.S. imports. Now, to the other potentially significant tariff development. Last week, we identified 11 car brands that were in deep trouble over the tariffs because they do not have any U.S. assembly plants. One of those companies is Mitsubishi, which plans to bring a compact electric SUV to the U.S. market next year, which is based on the next-gen Nissan Leaf. Remember, Nissan owns 34% of Mitsubishi, and the Leaf is assembled in Tennessee, so it sure sounds like Mitsubishi will get cars from that plant. And here's where it really gets interesting. Mitsu just signed a deal to have Foxconn build a compact crossover for it in Taiwan that it's going to export to Australia and New Zealand. Also remember, Foxconn has an assembly plant in Lordstown, Ohio that's practically sitting empty. Mitsubishi obviously needs more U.S. production than just getting its own version of the Leaf, so we've got to believe that Mitsubishi and Foxconn have had some kind of talks about moving production to that plant in Lordstown. Now to some earnings reports. Rivian had a really tough first quarter. It only sold 8,640 vehicles over the first 3 months of the year, which was down 36% from a year ago. And yet, its revenue was virtually unchanged from last year, coming in at $1.2 billion. That's because the income that Rivian got for its software and services skyrocketed by 263%, putting $318 million on the top line. And almost all of that increase came from the work that it's doing for Volkswagen. Even so, Rivian still lost money. It posted an adjusted EBITDA of $329 million and a net loss of $541 million. But here's the good news. That EBITDA loss was 58% less than last year, and the net loss was actually a 62% improvement. Yesterday, we reported on how Ferrari had a great first quarter. Today, it's Lamborghini's turn. It sold 2,967 cars, up a strong 12.8%. Revenue shot up nearly 30% to 895 million euros. It posted an operating profit of 248 million euros, which was up an impressive 32%. Lambo credits the V12 PHEV Revuelto and the hybrid version of the Urus for pushing up sales and earnings. But the company could be pressed hard to keep this kind of growth going. Its biggest market is in the United States, and the Trump tariffs are sure to have an impact since all of its cars are made in Italy. You know, there's so many car companies in China, no one seems to know for sure exactly how many there are. There's the state-owned enterprises, the SOEs. There are the EV startups like NIO, Xiaomi, and BYD. There's the tech companies like Huawei that have jumped into the game. But an airline? That's a new one on us. And yet, Car News China reports that one of China's biggest airlines, Junyao, just started selling a 5-seat electric sedan in China. It's called the JY Air. It goes for about $20,500, has a 150 kilowatt motor, that's about 201 horsepower, and has a range of 530 kilometers, or almost 330 miles. But Car News China says the company probably cannot survive in the hyper-competitive Chinese market and will have to rely on overseas production and sales. There is an absolute frenzy in China to create the fastest EV charges on the planet. BYD's Super E platform, for example, claims it can hit 1,000 kilowatt speeds that will add 250 miles in only 5 minutes. But a report from Tsinghua University says fast charging really degrades battery life. It says that frequently using fast charging, over 120 kilowatts, can cut battery life 40% compared to slower charging. EV owners are advised to use fast charging less than 40% of the time, and they should not use it at all when the state of charge is under 10% or over 90%, because that's when most of the damage is done. Hyundai sales in China have completely fallen off a cliff. In 2016, it sold 1.16 million vehicles, but last year that plummeted to just 151,000. Yet Hyundai's not given up on the Chinese market. It just introduced a new model that it hopes will turn things around. It's called the Alexio, and the crossover is the first fully electric model that it has launched that was designed and developed specifically for China. Hyundai developed the platform with BAIC, and the model's range and pricing will be revealed later this year. You know, Hyundai was one of the first foreign brands to launch in China, and it did really well early on, especially with taxis. But political tensions between China and South Korea have hurt the brand. So to help reverse its slide, last November, Hyundai and BAIC committed to invest $1.1 billion for new EVs and to expand exports. And here's a strange development. About a year ago, Zeekr went public with an IPO, but now its parent company, Geely, wants to take it private. Geely says it will pay shareholders a 14% premium to buy their shares. That would place Zeekr's value at about $6.4 billion. Last year, Zeekr started trading on the New York Stock Exchange, but its stock dropped 20% this year over concerns of tariffs and that price war going on in China. Geely chairman Li Shufu is shaking up the company. Over the last decade, the automaker aggressively expanded, acquiring all kinds of brands like Volvo and Lotus, and it's now got 9 brands under its umbrella. But now Geely is starting to consolidate its operation and cut costs to become more competitive. Hey, take a look at the optional hood that you can now buy for the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra. That's one of the hottest EVs in China right now, and it's been showered with all kinds of press coverage, ranging from a horrific crash that killed 3 occupants while allegedly running in autonomous mode that made headlines all across China, to proudly setting the fastest lap time for a 4-door sedan at the Nürburgring. Now, to cash in on that Nürburgring success, Xiaomi is offering this carbon fiber hood with scoops for only $5,800. The scoops on the hood are not functional, which has offended some buyers, but they sure make the car look cool. Hey, before we go, a special shout out to you who have signed up to support Autoline with Patreon and YouTube memberships. More and more of you are joining every day and getting early access to content, as well as exclusive content that's only available to members. And with that, we wrap up today's report. Please join us again tomorrow.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Intrepid Control Systems. Over-the-air engineering boost your game. Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility. And by
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.